and welcome everybody to Stitch by Stitch chapter-wise conversations with me and Sarab. I am Sneha, the co-author of 13 Stitches and the author of the third stitch, The Invisible Threads, that we are going to be unsuing today.
Hi guys, this is Sarab Kaur and I'm the co-author of 13 Stitches, and it's interesting that we're going to be talking about this particular chapter because this is something very touchy for all married couples. And so Sneha, I just want to tell you this, that while reading this chapter again, I kept thinking this woman, you wrote her really strong. She walked into this marriage with a full sense of self, but somewhere along the way, she just faded, and it wasn't sudden, so it was slow, it was almost invisible. And I feel like that's what happens a lot, right? From the outside everything looks normal, a good family, a good home, no shouting, no bruises, but internally something's just not sitting right, which makes me want to ask you, why do you think it's so hard for someone in a toxic relationship to even admit they're not okay or ask for help, especially when nothing looks wrong in the world?
Right. So before I start answering that question, I want to point out the fact that a lot of people reached out to us and told us that they are the real life Amrita.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how many of us have been putting up with the idea of not being okay and still having to pretend, because like you said, nothing looks wrong on the outside, because the picture is always perfect. So to start answering that question, I think I will refer to a dialogue where Rajiv is talking to Amrita and they are over a phone call, and he says to her, it's a part of a dialogue, okay, and he says to her, I don't understand how you can keep ranting about how unhappy you are. I'm slogging here to raise the standards of our family. I'm sorry, he says my family. And all you do all day is talk about your own mental problems. You know what? I'm actually sick of you. So the reason why we are talking about Rajiv talking to Amrita like that is because it's an everyday conversation. I think we've all heard this sentence, irrespective of the gender. But why it's not okay for a person to accept that he or she is not okay, or, they do not want to accept that there is something wrong in a marriage. Primarily, I think it's because the person feels very confused, because their emotions and their experiences are not matching the idea of what a relationship should be like. So, in psychological terms, if we look at it, it's called cognitive dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
There is no sync between what's happening and, what actually it should be like, or what they think it should be like in their head. Okay. And then there's a mental conflict that it makes it hard to speak up. Then there is a fear of judgment. There is a fear of not being believed. Like, so if I go and tell this to somebody, if I tell this to somebody I don't know, or if I seek help, what if they do? Excuse me. What if they don't believe me? What if I lose my relationship if I open my mouth and start speaking? There's shame because, people will think that it's my fault. Like I couldn't take care of a marriage, it's something that everyone takes care of. So maybe I'm, a part of the biggest failure here. And then over time, what happens is this toxic behavior starts to feel normal. So if you're being manipulated to doubt your own reality, you start to believe that, okay, maybe that is actually the truth, or maybe it's not so bad, So I think that is why people don't accept that
it's not okay. Yeah. And it takes a little while for them to realize that they've been dug deep and they're probably buried.
Right. If there are things that are looking fine on the outside, the mind could be, something that's silenced on the inside. The mind is made to believe that you need to keep quiet because, we have to fit into a normal, because that's how our society is constructed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really sad that it still happens in today's date, in 2025, it actually occurs. I think we're just still lucky enough to be living in a metro city and, having good family backgrounds despite of that. In other regional places, in little towns and in villages, however modern these families turn out, they're having fancy cars, bigger bungalows, they're wearing modern clothes, eating fancy food or whatever, junk food and whatsoever brands they are wearing, but it all narrows down to mentality, which
what's
really
in the head.
So unfortunately women do go through a lot, but luckily there are supportive husbands as well. There are understanding families too, but particularly we are here talking about your character, which you have portrayed so strong that even the cover has the Lal Bindi on it.
That's the solidarity that I'm showing with her today.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay. So another thing is like all this makes me think of something else too. Like, have you ever seen or heard of situations where a woman slowly just stops recognizing herself in a new home? Like she's there physically doing everything, but mentally, emotionally, she's gone quiet. What do you think causes that shift? Is it loneliness, pressure, or just constant self-questioning?
Yeah, to answer that, I have a small paragraph that I will read about
Yes.
Amrita. So Amrita introspected as she spoke to the walls. My opinions have been silenced. My education, the achievements I have made through my work have been rendered worthless. My lively conversations have been muted to whispers. So, very close to the question that you're asking me, this line shows how there is loss of identity in a new home, especially after marriage. When you move in with your partner or maybe with the family, what happens is maybe, the woman takes up a lot of roles.
Yeah.
She's in the role of a wife. And of course, it's all new for her, right? So she's in the role of a daughter-in-law. And then suddenly she's the caregiver of the entire family. And while, slowly she realizes that she's giving up parts of her own identity to accommodate the needs, to accommodate the comfort of the other people who are new in her life. Like, I don't know if it goes vice versa, but mostly in the way the society is constructed, I think it's a lot of load on the new bride that you are now the caregiver. You are now responsible for so many things that, you were so careless about until like just yesterday. So it's, her choices, her voice, her space, it starts to get overlooked. Or maybe in most cases, I wouldn't say most, maybe in a lot of cases, they start to get controlled. Her voice is controlled. Like, in the story also, Amrita encounters a situation where she's being told that, you are a nobody. So it begins, what happens is it makes the woman feel powerless and it eats away her sense of self. And there is a chronic emotional suppression that happens because of constantly hiding her feelings to keep the peace, okay, or to fit in, like they say, you have to fit in. Everybody does it, so you have to do it too. And that can make her emotionally very numb and invisible, even to her own self. Like she doesn't acknowledge that this is what I'm feeling, and maybe this needs to be processed, because it's not normal to sit and
Mental trauma on a
yeah,
new bride.
brain.
And like you mentioned, there's a dialogue in your chapter saying you are a nobody, despite of
Yeah.
she being the new Lakshmi of the house, the new
Yes.
bride. Ab tum karta dharta ho. You will only do
Correct.
what you will be told. You will only do
Asked.
what you will be asked to do, even if it is despite your wishes. Because there are so
Yes.
many things. A person comes with their own identity, their own choices. But sadly, in the marital life, it's not always unicorns and rainbows.
Yes.
And yeah, that's the part of adjustment. And your character is definitely very strong. And I love the whole chapter. I think when you were writing it, I was like, okay, this is one heck of a chapter and very
Yeah.
strongly put out there. Now, even though we were saying that this is going to be a very light flash fiction, genre, somehow, I don't know why, but it has touched people's heartstrings. And when we had our events, I'm so glad that they brought up this chapter,
Yeah.
compared to the others. So that's
Right.
a great feedback.
Yes, because I think like I said in the beginning of, our chat, that a lot of people related to the character because that's how the society is built. Everybody feels that I am the real life Amrita. So
Hmm.
that's because I feel like, the society was constructed for child marriages at one point of time. So the
Yeah.
girl needed to be taught, the girl needed to be taught. That lack of understanding that things have changed. We are
Yeah.
grown adults when we get married. We have a thought process of your own. You have your ideas, your opinions so strong, and those are suddenly silenced and you're being told how to do basic things.
Yeah.
So that puts the woman in a lot of strain, and that construction of society is sort of not changing, I feel. And that's
Yeah.
what brings about all this. And every single woman, I think, has experienced this. Of course, we are talking about women here, but I would say it's not only the woman. There are a lot of cases where the man also is in situations where he's very out of place in this whole setting, and there's all of a sudden there's this whole strain of taking up financial responsibility for
Yeah.
not one but two people now,
True.
and sometimes the entire family. So of course it affects men as well, but I think adjustment into a new family with new people and new home, and in most cases the husband is also not understanding of this situation, so it gets really complex for the woman, I think.
It does.
Yeah, that's why it becomes more relatable for all of us, I guess.
All of us. And I think all we can say is that I hope this ends someday with a good
I hope so
partnership.
too. Yeah,
Because a marital life, like initially when we started this conversation, I mentioned it's for married couple and not just women. So,
women, yeah,
but because it's woman centric, this particular chapter of yours, hence the conversation rolled around there. But otherwise, yes, I really hope that partnership gets stronger and people really understand how it goes.
understand. True, very true.
All right, I guess
All
that's it
right,
for today.
that's
And
quite a chat for today. Yes.
yeah,
And I think we'll see our readers and viewers in the next stitch. While we unwind that stitch, you stay tuned. And if you have not got your hands to 13 stitches as yet, please get your copy. We'll put the link in the description box and see you. Bye bye.
bye guys, see you.